All right. Kia ora, everybody. What's up? Welcome to Robett Live, episode 267. Friday, New Zealand back in semi-lockdown for Auckland CBD. It doesn't affect me at all because I've been doing the exact same thing over here in California for month 9, which is great. Today we have on the show a good friend. We'll start with that first. Good friend and ... CEO of Spirit Odd Adventure Trust. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Bruce Pilbrow. How are you, mate?
I am great. I've got a day at home today, which means I can catch up on some work, which is nice.
I feel a little threatened once again with your backdrop because you're just making yourself look very intellectual, just extremely well read.
Well, you can go this way, or you can go the robett way, which is whiskey is behind them.
Yes.
So
well, I've got on the one little bit. I've just got one little copy there.
A little sniffer.
I gotta keep it consistent.
Yeah.
You go.
Oh yeah. So I've read most of those books, I think. Yeah.
Have you actually?
I never used to be a reader. I don't know about you, but through school and stuff, I never really got into reading. And then I think I was about 30. I just read a book, probably a full book for the first time, and thought, oh, this is a pretty good time. And then got into it. So
fiction, non-fiction. Where do you go to?
Both. I love people's stories. So like I don't know if you read. Just finished reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's story. Was he your ex-mayor or something? And it was fascinating. You just see this guy coming to a country as an immigrant and just hustling like from day one. I mean, obviously he worked to be an incredible bodybuilder and actor, but he always had a side hustle. Like he was doing up houses and painting and doing gutters, and yeah, it was a pretty inspirational book actually. I was pleasantly surprised. And then the latest one I just read is Flea's story.
Oh yeah.
Another amazing book. Yeah. So that's the sort of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. But I'm more into the audio, but I can't control myself to sit down and commit for time. So I always will multi-do it. So I'll have an audio book while I'm either walking or doing something or driving or whatever, or a condensed version. So anyway.
Well, it's because you and I are both sort of slightly ADHD, to be honest. We find it really hard to
can't do it.
You need to try it, buddy. You need to get that zen. Yeah.
Well, I've been trying to meditate. I've been doing meditation. Been trying to do a bunch more of it. Cool. I've got like a Muse little headband thing. It tries to gamify it, so at least it's some type of mental competition for me to try and just balance it out. And I've been wearing like heart rate trackers to try and track my heart rate at different times because I'm obviously pretty emotional. I get pretty hyped on some shit, and then my heart rate just goes through the flipping roof, and it's kind of dangerous because then when you're emotionally driven and charged and it's in a situation like stuff that whatever, you just get hyped. Yeah. It's like actually it's not the smartest thing, Robett. So maybe just But
just chill out. Anyway.
I'm only 35, got a bit of time. Where do I want to start here? Actually, I'll start with this. You were the Chief Transformation Officer at Yellow, and now you've taken quite a dramatic shift out of the technology, SME business, digital marketing landscape, and you've taken a totally other shift in another direction. Yeah. Why did you shift from such a big tech role into probably one of the most non-tech? Maybe I'll flip it the other way. Why did you shift from such a commercially driven role to such a community driven role?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you're partly to blame. So I think it's like I'm sure a lot of people relate to this, right? You sort of do a job, and you do a job well, and you have some, have the rewards, and I guess success, whatever that looks like for you. But I don't know. I've always had this inner drive in my life to go, and it's been ever since in my 20s actually, which I get this sort of ping about year 2 or year 3 and go, is that enough? Am I doing enough? And when I say, am I doing enough for my whānau? Am I doing enough for my community? Am I doing enough for my country? And when that starts to rise in me, it's hard for me to ignore it. And so what happens in a corporate environment, I keep asking the question, what's our mission? What's our vision? What are we actually shifting? What dial are we shifting? What are we changing? And if it's an EBITDA dial, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, because because for business to be successful from a commercial perspective, you have to chase that. So I'm not being critical, but for me, if that's all it is, then I start to get a little bit twitchy. I just start to think, actually, no, I want to do more. And so I've sort of stepped into corporate, and I learn the skills, do the mahi, and then I'd like to bring that back into NGO world. But the outcome is a changed life, and that's what makes me smile. Yeah. So I guess that's a very quick summary. Yeah.
Do you think you would have, if you felt like you had won earlier, like let's say in your 30s or late 30s, do you think you would have jumped soon, or did you not feel that you'd reached the top yet of what you could do in the commercial space? Like, do you feel like you're tapped there, or like,
yeah,
because yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think let's put a very quick thing on the table. Whether you work in a commercial world or NGO world, the skill set to me, there's a lot of similarity, and there's a lot each can learn from the other. So at NGO world, you always approach something, you're always working something from nothing. So you know this from being an entrepreneur, right? You don't have the big marketing budgets, you don't have the big teams. So I always start with, what can we achieve? How big is the problem? How big's the hole? How big's the challenge? And then we figure out how we do it, but you're coming from a place of, you don't have the resources or the cash. And that to me means that you have to dip right into your skill set to do that. In some ways, it's a little bit easy when you have a big budget. Do you know what I'm saying?
I've got a friend who was representing the marketing manager of a very big global company, and I asked him what's the difference between going from that to startup world, because he'd gone through a similar journey in the last couple of years, and he said, when you've got a big brand and an engine, you could totally stuff up absolutely everything the entire time, and it's not going to matter anything because you're a smidgen for someone else's, and it's not even your own money anyway. And they've got such big global guidelines with what you can and can't do that it's essentially a blueprint, and you just need to basically pick the agency and just make sure shit doesn't stuff up because everything's regulated and done. There's almost, you've got huge budgets, but no real choices to really actually make. So you you felt like a bit of a placeholder. And I know it's the wrong, even though you'd think, oh, you're the marketing manager of this $1 trillion global company, mentally he felt like he was just intellectually not being utilized, and he was fully a cog, because he said, anything I do doesn't actually shift the dial. I literally am kind of a placeholder here, and that's one of his things. So I definitely know what you mean, opposed to when you're in startup world, it's like, hey, I've got $1,000, I need to get 100 customers, go.
Very similar to MGA, very similar. And I think the first aha moment was probably in my 30s. So a lot of people relate to sort of, I don't know if they still do it, but if you were doing really well in a big company, they used to put you on like a fast track, So I was working for an oil company, I was doing really, really well, and then they started to fast track me into roles. So what that usually means is you start moving. So they'll move you to Whangarei, they'll move to Tauranga, and then they'll move you to Wellington. And the next minute you're in Singapore, and then you'll be in South Africa, and so on and so forth. And again, I felt exactly like that. The brand was Celtic's Oil, and we changed from our. I remember sitting in a room, and they changed the branding in the 90s, and they spent like $52 million worldwide to change a star to a slightly cooler looking star, And then the edict came down from Singapore. We had specific rules of how we had to place a sticker on a pump, and I get all that. Like, I'm not trying to be critical of that, but I felt exactly like your friend. I kind of thought, I'm just a cog in a system, and I could chase that rabbit down that hole, and I'll become a big corporate junkie. But that doesn't align with who I am. So NGO is a lot more like startup. I'm one day I'm the accountant, next day I'm the HR person. CEO. Really, the only difference between me and my staff is that the board knows who's asked to kick if something goes wrong. But other than that, we're all doing the mahi to make this thing hum, and that's especially at the Spirit, right? So, so I love it.
So I was just going to say, for those who don't know what the Spirit does, just a quick nutshell, what does it do and how does it do it?
Geez, I tell you what, mate, I've fallen in love with this brand, I tell you, I said to myself, I was going to go back in NGO. It had to involve environment, the ocean, Aotearoa, and the youth transformation. That's what I'm looking for. And a lot of youth brands that I dealt with in the past were awesome, but they tended to expose the problem or touch on it. What the Spirit does, and it's done it for almost 50 years, is that you jump on a ship with 40 of your peers that you do not know. Some kids arrive in a Range Rover, Some kids arrive on a bus with no shoes from Murawa up north, right? And these 40 kids are jammed in bunks at the front. First, when they walk on the ship, they hand all their devices over. There's no technology. And you have 10 days where you have to come together as a team. You have to learn. There's no gender. There's no diverse. Those things don't get in the way. You just got to get on because you're on a ship in the middle of nowhere, and this thing doesn't move unless you come together as a team. And what happens is by day 6, most kids hit the wall. They've been throwing up, or they've been working hard, and they want to get off the ship. By day 10, you can't get them off, and they're lifelong friends, and it absolutely changes their life. And I've been reading the research from Otago, and they research kids going on when they get on the ship, when they come off 6 months, 9 months later, and the transformative nature of what we do is, I should send it to you, bro. It will blow your mind. It's unbelievable.
Love to see it.
I mean, if you're into MPS schools, just talk marketing, and I have to be honest, I'm a little bit critical of MPS schools, but the average youth development program through the Ministry of Youth Development hits the 55. We hit 85. So it actually does something, and that's why I'm passionate about it. Absolutely love it, and it's just through the challenge of the sea. That's what it is.
It's really interesting with the dynamics of when they're fully cast into it, because the physical, it's like in snowboarding, you and somebody, you're right at the top, there's no chairlift around, there's no nothing, it's just you hiking to the top thing. You have to get down, you have to go as a unit together, full stop, or you die. It is life or death, black or white. Yep. And in an age when you're kind of putting all of these things physically on a ship, they are physically disconnected from any escapism, any simple way to see it. There's no exit. It's you need to confront every single communication barrier and emotional barrier and physical barrier and everything. It's almost forced solution solving in real time. But then when you have youth, I'm imagining, I bet all of them probably lose their shit after 2 hours without their cell phone on day one, right?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I do. So forget the youth. But you take 16 and 18-year-olds, and that's the most transitional stage of life. I mean, if you remember when you were a kid, right, it's a real complicated year. You get into serious exams. You probably had your first girlfriend, or probably you'll be onto your fifth by then, but knowing you, robett. But, you're trying to discover who you are. We get confused about our gender. There's a whole bunch of stuff that, we're trying to work through. And everything in the world has a very binary approach to it. It's either you're that or this, or this. And it's very confusing. And then the young people today, and even us, we know how to build a community in a digital space. We're fantastic at it. But what you've got to do when you get on the Spirit with 40 people that you do not know, that's the rule. We make sure you don't know, and you're from everywhere around Aotearoa. You've got to learn to create a community. And a community the old-fashioned way, you've got to actually have a conversation. You've got to, and so what happens is, and what it teaches, what I've really seen out of it, mate, is that the community they create is like it has the glue that lasts a lifetime. And I met a guy yesterday who was 78, went on the Spirit. I was 75, went on the Spirit. He was on voyage 1 in 1973.
Wow!
And he still volunteers for us. he comes on and cooks for kids. He's unbelievable.
Being able to create experience that has all those dynamics is such an intersection point of guaranteed effect on someone's life. When you think about moments in business, it's like, okay, cool, we've got COVID and tech and this and that and data, and it's a moment, and it has this, it has a thing which changes everything. It's a nucleus that changes entire ecosystems. But something like this, like when I went to Japan for the first or second time when I lived there, I could speak a little bit to get by, but when you are fully immersed, 100% physically there with no escapism, you pick shit up real quick, and it is just all consuming. Every different interaction, it's all new, and your brain just gets into a different wavelength, of what it's seeing and how it's interacting, and the challenges in real time, and just the most simple things of communication. Like I can almost imagine as well, most of these young bucks today that are communicating online with, slide into the DM, swipe right, left, all that jazz, it probably is extremely scary for them to sit down with people they don't know, to look them in the eye and actually have a conversation. It's
exactly.
pretty surreal. Yeah. Do you film them? It feels like its own reality show. Do you just do each one as its own like little vlog thing?
Yeah. Yeah, but we're really careful. We want the environment to feel safe, a space
True.
where you can bring your whole self, a place where you can discover. We'll never say to you, "Come to our ship, we're going to transform you." It's not about that. It's about the challenge of the sea. So we're working with Pete Burling and Blair Turk a little bit with their charity called Live Ocean, and I was talking to them the other day, and they both of them are amazing, obviously incredible New Zealand's best sailors, and they talk about whether it's sports, snowboarding, or whatever, or whether you do drama or your music or whatever. It's what's challenging you as a young person. I always say for a young person, well, I don't say this, I've read this. If someone has a cause greater than themselves, then sometimes your eyes go outward and your problems become less. And I guess that's what we're trying to do, is trying to give young people a bigger worldview to help them move past kind of what's in their world right now. And we're sponsoring kids, mate. This is probably the biggest joy of my life, is that I want no barriers to entry. If you need to transform, if you want to have an experience, then I'll get you on there. Just sponsored a beautiful kid from the East Cape. Just cannot afford to go anywhere near this ship. But they're coming because they just have the potential, and you know what I look for? They volunteer in their community. They're doing things in their community. They haven't got 2 cents to rub together, but they are already doing the mahi to try and move themselves forward. And I guess, bro, if you think about, so you asked me a question at the beginning, the difference between tech world and transforming a big brand from a print-based brand to a tech brand. There's a lot of similarities. It's transformation. It's and it's very similar to a startup, and that's what really excites me, and I love it. And I've just forgotten how much I loved it, and it was all because of you and that bloody conference you dragged me along to last year called Power Moves. But it was good. It's what I needed at the time, just a gentle reminder of who I was and what I should be doing with my life. Yeah,
it's awesome, man. And I think as well, when you make a decision like that, at the time, it probably means you're going to have less regret in about 10 years. Because like a big thing I always think about, the future regret of others. And, when you get to this, well, like, cool, like tap that, great, smacked it, mean, next.
Yeah.
But then if you did it too late, you might not be able to get as much impact. And then you'll be like, shit, if only I would have done it sooner or whatever. So, you're actually saving yourself a future regret, which is pretty awesome. That's cool, dude.
Well, actually, the best way to put it is when I was chasing the corporate dream, my wife said I was a bit of a dick. And so, because I just get so focused. You and I are similar. We just get so focused, so drilled down on it. And I really think some of the life choices I've made we've been married 31 years this year, and I think some of the life choices I've made have fed into that as well. So look, that's my story. Everyone's got their own thing they need to carve out. I mean, the people that make lots of money, I love them too, because they sponsor kids on the ship. So it's yin and yang. But I think the question I've got for you, I guess, because I'm going to interview you now, but it is interesting coming. But it is interesting. Yeah, but it is interesting, bro, isn't it? You come through COVID and we're stuck in this world right now. Like, you and I would much rather do this over a beer, right? We hug, we connect, But the COVID world this year, we've almost removed those social things. And as humans, I think we're designed to be social, and it is quite a real reminder that Zoom's great. I love Zoom; it's fantastic, but I also hate it at the same time, and what it's doing to our community. So that's a real gentle reminder through all this as well, isn't it?
Agree. I think the dynamics of connection has changed quite dramatically, and one of the things that I know is a bit of my superpower is when I'm physically in a room with anyone or any situation, I can read all the energy with my eyes closed. I can literally pick apart without anyone saying anything. I'm like, okay, boom, 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 tension, this, that. Like, I can see the whole thing play out. Visually trying to decode that remotely is extremely difficult. Like, I'm doing it and it's happening, but the calls need to be longer. You need to have more actual conversation. It's more, like when someone goes to their first job interview. I mean, not that I've ever had a job interview, but I know that they put on but when they do, they put on a shell of like, yep, I've done go. It's very chameleon-esque, right?
Yep.
Of their title
Yep,
of,
it is.
it's not actually them. And what I felt happen for the first little bit was in lockdown was all the people were still having that chameleon on at home of with perfection, right? Like they're supposed to, like, people were putting full makeup on and no kids or dog or this and that, and it was almost this weird
Backgrounds.
thing of backgrounds. What's the background? And then what it felt like, it slowly started breaking away. And, you know, when people were coming out and leaders were coming out, being seen at home, not in their suits, that was a big thing, right? When you were seeing the boss in a t-shirt, you're like, whoa, okay, they're a human. Oh, they see a kid coming in the background. And I actually think that the shift of, if you took screen grabs of everyone's Zoom calls on week 1 versus week 10, 11 after COVID, guarantee you visual shift. And I know it because I've seen it, but also it feels like maybe it's humanized. It's taken away a little bit of that chameleon shell for leaders in business, which is good, but simultaneously the true connection piece of being with them definitely is missing. I think that the human connection has just potentially amplified even more, to your point where I think, you know, old school be the new school. They want to see them, look them in the eye, have a beer.
Exactly. And I remember you would have grown up. Did you grow up with Jason Gunn on TV? Yeah. Of course you did. Yeah, love that guy. He's fantastic. And I remember having a crack up with him one day. He goes, "Technology's so good, it's taking us backwards." And what he was meaning by that is that, you know, we used to ring people and have a conversation. And text is, you know, and look, I don't want to sound like the old guy in my day. You know, we used to ring people, but I think what I'm saying to you is exactly what you've just said, is that this year has taught us that, you know, yes, this has broken down barriers, which is great. You know, you're in my home, you know, so that's cool. And you know, you haven't been in my home before, so it's lovely to have you here. But it also has reminded us that that wider, that spirit that comes from connecting and being in the room with each other, really is magical. And you know, and I think that's probably why, again, coming back to the spirit, why I love that is when you're in an environment, an eco environment, where you just got to get on with each other, something beautiful happens. And it's great it's similar to what you and I did last year, or when you did it, I just rocked up. But you know, we had that community come together of people. Nobody knew anybody. Or some people knew, but you know what I'm saying? I didn't know anybody. And this beautiful vulnerability happened from the first second to the last second. And we made lifelong friends. And it was, 2.5 days together, 3 days.
Yeah.
So,
it takes a lot to, I think the magic with it, someone said before, like, you know, your world's extremely weird. It's like a magnet of gathering. You know, you know how to curate, and I can see it differently because I know the then what. I know that if I have all these bubbles of trust that I know, and if I create a safe space for all those other bubbles to just organically interact, that gives them the leeway to be vulnerable and open and more challenging and thought-provoking, but with respect and fun and challenging, but not in a like creating these spaces of energy with humans is something that I've done for years, actually. I've just never really realized it. And it's not till way later I'm thinking, oh, actually, no one else really does these things. Oh, there's a reason why ... There's a reason why ... And it's just kind of instinctual for me. But yeah, it's been cool to see those relationships become lifelong with others. On the thought of relationships, I've been very happy about one thing, very disappointed with one thing. Very happy that you're now on year 32 of marriage, but definitely disappointed because I'm still yet to see that your tricks for 30 years of marriage.
You keep telling me to write something, don't you?
It's so gnarly because you're not even crazy old, right? No. You've been married for 30. 12. And you flew back out from Utah. But so I want to talk about marriage, right? I'm on coming into year 9. You're on 30. You know, I married at 24, married 26, now 35, year 9. But you've been married for 30 years.
31
right?
years. 31 years in December,
How, when you think about, everyone says, you know, do you feel you've both changed together or changed separately, or have you changed?
Well, Manda would often say that she's married to her 4th man now.
Interesting.
So I think we've changed. Yeah, I think we've changed together. I think we've it's interesting, because, you know, life can be hard and it can be great. Life is a roller coaster, isn't it? It's up and down. And it's kind of, I think the biggest thing for us is how we work through our shit together. How do we, and we get better and better. I mean, by year 2, my wife almost kicked me out the door because I was just being such a douchebag because I just selfish and, just driven to do, but I was 23, but I had to learn to be, I had to learn to realize that I have this, as you do, she's a completely different person and the way she processes and does things is completely different. So I guess for me, I had to change. So she's not changing me. I think I want to be really clear about that. It's not about changing your partner, but it's about the respect to be willing to learn and to adapt your style to suit what's best for them and vice versa, but still maintaining who you are. So, because I'm an complete extrovert to my wife who's an introvert. So, we've had to learn to figure that out. But I guess the way I'd summarize, Robett, is this: you're either into it or you're not. If you're not into it, fine, move on. Do you know what I mean? Because
yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to have a world of pain.
Yeah.
But if you're committed to and you're genuinely in love with this person and you're committed to making it work, then you will be that'll make you self-aware enough to do something to make it work. That's I guess that's my theory. My conclusion after 31 years of making a complete mess of it sometimes. Many times. In fact, I've got a list. She keeps a list for me of all the times I've messed it up. So that's quite long, but that's okay. Yeah.
What is on the list?
I can be pretty arrogant at times, forgetful. I think the worst thing I can do for Amanda is take her for granted. So I know that about her. And we've done things like, I don't know if you've done Enneagram or love languages or things like that. So for me, for example, for years and years, I bought Amanda flowers. Here's flowers, I love you. Here's flowers, I love you. And then finally, after about 5 years, she goes, I hate getting flowers, don't you? I went, why? She goes, because they die. They're a waste of money. I was like, oh. So then I changed shoes. So I started buying shoes or jewelry. And she goes, you're not hearing me here. I don't want that crap.
She wants time?
Well, what? No, she wants me to clean the toilet.
Oh, tasks. This is the love languages thing.
Yeah, ask us. So I clean the toilet, mate. Barry White comes out. It all gets romantic. I mean, honestly, I could buy 1 million flowers, but if I clean that toilet, it's all on. So, but when I discovered that with my wife, like that's the way, that's something that shows love to her. Then I switched my style. It saved a lot of money because I didn't have to buy flowers, which is great. I switched my style to suit that. It just changed. It transformed things. So for me, it's words of affirmation. Really hard for Amanda to do. She had to write notes to herself to remind her to write a note for me that she loved me, because it's not her natural style. But once she learned how to do that connected it. So, yeah, I think it's, we talk about the books at the beginning, reading books and stuff. It's about the willingness to learn and then willingness to transform. I think that's my theory.
But I know deep down you're the same person of who you are, but you change and evolve yourself over time. Like, I know that my energy is different from when I was 18 to of like, I'm going out to go try, shoot, go kill, destroy. 20 of like, now I'm going to build. And then 30 is like, now I'm married, now it's fam, and the perspectives and energy sort of shift, right? And I think that what I'm noticing, from obviously now I've been together for 11 years, almost 12 years, is as we go through these phases, your journey, you're at a different path. So the way you see the world is, it's almost like you're wearing a different lens. Like you put a little camera on, you put a different lens on. Now I've got like a different lens and I'm seeing it a bit of a different way. I'll physically be in the same place from 10, 15 years ago, but I see it differently. And I think when you've got the same lenses on, that I call them lenses, then you've got more, I guess, empathy for like, hey, we're now at this sort of phase. It's not about us, it's about them. How do we morph that together? We'll kind of slowly weave that together, and depending on, not being working or traveling or this and that. But yeah, you're definitely right. I think it's the evolution together, Yeah,
it is. And I think, and that's where you kind of stuff it up, or, iron rubs iron, makes the sharp blade. As you come together, you sort of work it through, and And I guess the other thing too that we've always had a mantra, and we've stuck to this mantra, sort of, and this is our words for it, whatever it is for you, but kind of our God or our universe or our spirit. What leads us? What is the wider that hangs over our whānau, right? So for us, it's God, right? Then underneath that we have family, whānau. And for us, it's it's our kids, it's our marriage. That's really, and then there's everything else that sits under that. And everything else is my work. Now, what happens more often is that things in life like work and tasks and all those sorts of things, it can flip that model upside down. And I guess, and I don't think this is an old-fashioned thought, but I kind of go, if you choose to be married, if you choose to have children, if you choose to do these things in your life, then I think you have a responsibility to make sure they're your priority. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to preach from the high stool that I've got this together. I've always struggled keeping those three things in balance. But I know that when I do get that in balance, it's like that beautiful word haoro, which means sort of your spiritual, your mental, your emotional, and your physical. If they're in sync, then you start to really find your zen, I guess, if that's the right word. I think it's the same with marriage. If you choose to have children, you've got two little beautiful babies or young kids. You as a man, you've chosen with your partner to create, and therefore you have a responsibility to make sure that creation becomes the most amazing thing that you can give to this earth. So that's what kind of drives us a little bit, without being too over.
But you've got a hierarchy of a strategy. Like a good friend of mine, Justin, amazingly smart dude. He talked to me about, he calls it buckets. He has 3 buckets. He has his family bucket, his work bucket, and his friends and everything else bucket. And that's it. And he goes, sometimes it's super heavy on the work front, then your friends and fam drop off, and sometimes it's super and fam, and then you miss out. You don't get all the work stuff done to actually be able to provide back for that. Or if you're too into that, then you don't have your friends to get your own balance out. And the same way that essentially you're talking about priorities and balance, but when you look at those, you're talking about the balance of those 4 things. When you look at athletes in their prime, they're having a moment of balance where all their stuff's lining up for them to be in peak performance for them personally. And it's the timing of it, it's the prioritization of it. But then for relationships, it definitely is that too. And like clearly over 30 years, you've probably been through everything and seen everything. I remember me and wife were at our 7-year anniversary, and there was this old dogger couple next to us, and I look over, and then like super old dogger, not like super old dogger. Like I'm talking like they're 70s and maybe more. And we were saying, oh, what's up? Blah blah blah. They're having congratulations, champagne came over, whatever. I was like, how long have you been married for? They're like, 52 years. And we're like, holy shit. And then I look over, wifey went to the bathroom, whatever. And I said to the old dog, I was like, so what's the secret, Bo? What's the secret? And then she just butts in without even just saying anything. And she just looks me dead in the eye and she says, you need to be brutally honest, even if it will crush their soul the entire time. All the time. Exactly. Yeah. And then he just looked over and you started nodding. And it was this moment of like, I get it, because you can't, to last that long, you have to be so exposed. Like there's no time to piss around if you're actually going to do it. So either say it to its actual core, deal with it, but at least you then know where you at least stand. So I think it was kind of like rip the Band-Aid the entire time, because at least it's then honest. And I don't know if it's like the rawest way to do it, but I can imagine a lot of times that things don't get said. Like say, for example, yours for 5 years, she hated flowers. If she just said that shit on day one, you would be like, dude, well, there's flipping 10 grand I could have saved. Flipping sweet. I'll go, it's, have you found it the same when it comes to?
Yeah. I think the challenge there though, is that it was easy for me to buy flowers. It was harder for me to clean the toilet. So I had to learn to change, right? I had to learn, because it's, and it's like anything in life, it's easy to throw money at things or do things, like we talked about before. But if you actually got to, get down and do the mahi to make this work, then more often than not, we're like, oh God, okay, so you really want me to commit here? You really want me to do the work? I think, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think when those things do get out of balance, bro, they do. But that's where you become honest and say, look, this is not working. This is just not working. I feel like I'm being taken for granted. This is not happening. But I'd also say when life does take over, and it does, we've all had those jobs where the next 2 weeks, it's just going to slam you, or month or whatever it is. When I had my business, it just slams you, right? And but so then it was about communicating that, going, look, I'm in the trenches right now. This is what's happening. I'm not finding it easy, but I've got to push through, etc., etc. And then working out a strategy to make sure that when you are together or doing stuff, even with your kids or your wahine, that you're doing it really intentionally. So for example, so when you're with them, that you are turning off this thing, like a dinner table, like a simple one is dinner table, right? Freaking half an hour to each dinner. You don't need to have your phone throughout that half an hour. Just by doing little things like that can just make a huge difference. I mean, when we had kids, so I'll give you an example. So when we had kids at your age, I think I might have said this to you before, bro, was when I got home. So I sort of tried to dump my crap in my car, so mentally, as I was driving home. And when I got to the front door, I had to get to the habit of, when I walk through that door, the first, and I say 10 minutes, but whatever it is, the first 10 minutes, I'm in her world.
Yeah.
Right. So the kids would come to me. They'd come to me first, and I'd go, "Hey guys, good to see you, but I want to go." And I used to go and kiss Amanda first.
Yeah, I remember you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd go and kiss Amanda first, and then we'd say, "Kids, I'll be with you I'll be with you in a minute. I just want to catch up with Mum first." And so we got into the habit of doing that. Our kids still talk about today, and they're in their mid-20s. And we'd go to the other room, and I wouldn't do what you and I typically do, Robett. I'd shut up. So I'd say, "How's your day?" And then I'd shut the crap up and just not get into my day. And we found that little principle, because Amanda was at home full time for a large portion of it. We found that principle made a huge difference to our marriage, right? And then, over a glass of wine later, she'd go, "So how's your day been?" And then we'd have a good old chat about it. But that first intentional piece was really, really important.
Yeah,
the only time I didn't kiss, the only time I changed kissing my wife first was when we got a dog, because a dog used to come to the gate.
One's by default.
Yeah, that was a little bit tricky. But anyway, no, I'm just joking. But yeah, just that intentionality, bro. Yeah.
No, I get it. I always, I don't know if you remember, I remembered that conversation. I remember most things. And that's something that I've actually tried to take on too, to make that a conscious thing. So then they see as well that she's the priority.
Yes.
Not them to be distracted with blah, blah. And I've tried to do that a little bit too, which is cool. So no, I get it. I've got a note here I wanted to say, and I don't know whether it's just something that I wanted to talk about, or it's something, I don't know if you have felt or not. Maybe it's because every time we catch up, we have good yarns around jealousy. Jealousy. What? I want to talk about jealousy.
Oh, the word jealousy.
Yes.
Oh man.
So, have you ever been? Maybe I am asking for advice, maybe not, but then I'll say, when you're in the corporate world, did you ever feel jealous of those around you, or was it the what does that word mean to you when you're in that world of, from your commercial journey to date with your career? What does the word jealousy meant to you?
Yeah, I'd be honest, it's something I probably struggle with from time to time, mate. Quite a bit. Sometimes I get ideas about my station, which is probably not appropriate. I think I sort of get a bit arrogant and think I can do that. But I remember before I first became a CEO at 35, one of my mentors, a guy called Russ Hewitt, he has these things called Hewittisms. He's just one of these guys that just drops gems. And he said, "You'll never understand the black chair until you've sat in it." So what he was saying is that everyone aspires to be a CEO, but until you actually become one, you don't realize. Be careful what you wish for, almost. Yeah. So I used to be driven by, it is a jealous mindset. Oh, he can do that, or she can do that, therefore I can do that. But I think the thing I used to always struggle with, and I still do from time to time, is I get jealous of material things or what others have. So it's funny, isn't it? We've just had this conversation about the other side. Yeah. But I'm still human in the sense that that's something I just need to be aware of. I have to say, in the last 10 years, I've got way less interested in that. But I remember in my earlier years, I was quite driven by that, especially when I made life decisions like working in an NGO, or like you're doing in a startup. You're doing hard work, and you don't often get the rewards that others get if at the same age working in corporate. So they rock up to your house and they're driving a brand new this, and you're still driving the cruddy old Corolla. And that took me a while to get over. That was sort of a bit of a demon that sort of kept popping up. And it doesn't as much, but I remember in my 30s and probably early 40s that used to smack me around a bit. But it's all bullshit, really. I know that now.
Yeah, so it's funny you say Russ. I didn't know that. So Russ is one of my boys too.
Russ Hewitt.
Yep.
Yeah, from Vodafone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
So
helped me. He helped me with a few things. So yeah. No, I asked
lovely guy.
because I've been wondering about. And this happened. So I'll rewind back. Someone else in the similar space does similar things, and I'm just on my own buzz, right? Just doing my own shit.
Look, Jacinda's amazing, okay? You just need
No,
to relax and realize she is.
No, and so anyway, me and him finally, he ever like kind of crossed over, and he was just doing his thing, and I'm just on my own buzz. And anyway, we go for a beer once, finally, like years later, right? A couple years later, and he sits down and he goes, "Hey, look, man, I just really want to apologize for not kind of connecting up earlier and stuff with everything." I'm like, "Dude, it's all good, bro. What are you talking about?" And he goes, "I was really jealous of thinking you were a threat to what I did, that I kept you at arm's distance by choice and purposely because I felt that you were trying to take my lane." And this is after he finally got to know me, whatever. And I was like, "Bro, I'm not even, dude, I don't give a shit. It's all good, bro. Like, you do you, man, flipping sweet. Like, go for it." But it was weird because in his head, he had built this whole thing around thinking I was coming for him. And then I was like, oh, but then I know that when I've seen, there's been the classic one that I'll see is I'll do something and then I'll see someone else copy it, or a bunch of people try to copy the same type of shit. And I'm just like, just do your own shit. Like, it's all good, whatever. Who cares? But then I realized, then I see, so it's like, don't copy me, just do your own thing. It's all good. Like, great, yeah, whatever. But then I saw something kind of recently, and I was like, fuck, stuff that, like, I could do it better. And it was weird because it wasn't jealousy of what they were doing. It was my competitive nature overtapping any of that stuff. Of like, no. This is now something which I know I could do better, so I want to do that better for myself. And it was just, that's why I asked around jealousy, because in my head it wasn't jealous of anyone's skill sets or abilities or hard work or anything. It was the fact of like, wait a second, they are doing something which I know I could do, and I know I could do it better. And it's not that you're copying anything and jealousy of it, but that's why I ask about that, because for me it was just a bit, it felt different. It felt like it was kind of a good thing of knowing, hey, I want everyone to win. I love it when I see posts up and people are smashing it. I just think it's like the coolest shit, people winning. But I wanted just to ask myself that question of, actually, am I secretly jealous of that person? What am I envious of? Is it envy or is it encouragement, you know?
Well, you bring up a couple of key things there, and this sounds like a psychologist, but I think there's nothing wrong with being competitive. I mean, when you come from a professional sports background, right? If you're not competitive, you're not driven. If you're not wanting to take out the competition, then you're not going to be successful in that space. And the same applies when you've got a job. If you have competency and you have people like Russell Hewitt around you, that other mentors that really believe in you, see your ability to become a great leader, then you owe it to them and to yourself to pursue that. Because that's your gift. That's who you are. So that's I think that's great. The only proviso I put on that is, if you choose to be married or have a family, then you've got to try and balance that with that, and that can be a challenge, But jealousy is when you step into something different. So when I stepped out of corporate the first time to get into NGO, I felt those demons a little bit because, in the corporate I had the company car, the salary was guaranteed and all those sorts of things. It was wonderful, don't get me wrong. And at the time it wasn't feeding my soul. But when I stepped out of it and saw others, the guy that was, say, below me or same level, going up and then going up and going up in the corporate world, and I'm still doing this hard graft, I struggled with it a little bit. And it was my wife, again, the wisdom of a great woman. She said when we got married, I'd live in a tent with you. I mean, I haven't tested that, but she said I'd live in a tent with you. And she just keeps saying that. She goes, it's not about that. And I think now that I'm 52, and I have, 26-year-old son who's married, and 24-year-old daughter who's married, and a 22-year-old daughter who just left home a couple of weeks ago, broke my heart because it's so hard to see the last one leave the whare. But now we're sitting around the table the other day having a glass of wine together as a whānau and just having dinner together. I went, I'm the richest man around, man. This is not about company cars and all that sort of crap. This is what's happening here. And their careers taking off, and seeing them do their stuff, and their marriages are beautiful, and the people that are going out with are great, and you kind of go, man, I wasted a lot of energy on that. You know, and don't get me wrong, you know, compared to most, we all of us, you and I, we're doing really, really well. So I feel a bit conceited saying that, but you do fall into the trap of always wanting more, and it's a really dangerous game to play, in my view.
See, it's interesting. I went the other way. So 2 years ago, after sort of exited the companies, and I knew we were coming back to the States with wifey for baby number 2, I wanted nothing. I had this mental thing in my head. I had one backpack, which is called my go bag, which is just sitting over there, and it's got my camera, my tripod, my laptop. I've got my go bag, and I have one go bag, and I got rid of my wallet, and I put a little thing here, so I put my cards at the back there, and I wanted, my whole thing was like one phone, one bag, that's it. I want nothing else, like nothing. I didn't want anything. And then what's become interesting this last little bit, I'm then thinking of, you know, if there was, you know, $1,000 or $1 million or $10 million, $100 million in the bank, would it be different? And I was like, nah, I'm just totally maybe I'm just not, I don't know. But no, actually I lie. When I see cool tech, I want that. Like,
but that's a tool for them.
Oh, they've got the new frame rate. Oh, that's a floating drone. Oh, so maybe mine's more camera driven with purpose.
But that's tools. I remember when I left my job to start buy into a business on Friday, I was on, I don't know, 250 grand plus a car or something, and on Monday I was on zero. Now I'm talking from a privileged position, but we went to zero, and I think I had enough savings for like 3 or 4 weeks, and the rent was due on Thursday, and you got to hustle, and that was one example where you just got to, you get down to the roots. Now that sounds a bit flash when I talk about the salaries and stuff, but I remember when I was in corporate at 30, working for Celtic Soil, and my wife and I, with 3 kids, sold everything. I left corporate. I went to Bible college to do a Bachelor of Theology. I told you this.
That's right.
And we lived on, I think it was like 17 grand a year. This is year 2000 with 3 kids. And we made it work, man. I mowed lawns. I cleaned windows. And we, you know, and I don't want to sound like I was slumming it. You know, it's not about that, but it's about that 3 years taught us about how much energy and time we waste. And I guess what it did is it taught us how to be altruistic. So with what we've got, what are you giving? What are you giving to? Who are you giving to? Who are you helping? Who are you talking? Who are you mentoring? It doesn't have to be always financial, but it's about making sure that you are trying to live outside your selfish little realm of trying to create perfection and actually giving a shit about what happens outside your door.
Well, that's the interesting part of trying to balance what's public and what's private, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that I do publicly, but there's a shit ton of people that know me of stuff I do that's not seen anywhere. And I never talk about it. And I never talk about like who I'm with. Like but then over time, these bubbles start intersecting. I'm like, oh, wait, what? And I've always sort of juggled that. But one of the other ones I feel like I'm in a little flipping therapy session here, but I always love our chats. I kind of see a lot of myself in you, like in many respects of, you know, being young and ambitious and trying to, you know, get it and just that whole thing. But I read, the spin-off did this article thing on me a little bit ago, and it was super uncomfortable to do. It was weird. At the end of it, it said, how, and I forgot I'd actually said it in the interview, but I said, you know, it's about me trying to balance off my own ego and confidence versus the platform to actually help others, which is something that I feel, and I'm aware of it as I'm getting older. But when you're talking about in your 20s and you're, you know, ego rah-rah, I separate ego with confidence because I know I'm insanely ridiculously confident in my own skill set and abilities, and I know like when my brain goes to like do something, I can flip and do it, but it pulls that ego in sometimes, you know, and you get a bit, you know, shit, I know when I get it, and you know, Mel will literally, she'll say pineapple, and I'm like, fuck, like I've got to pull it back in. How did you?
Is that your safe word?
Yes, man, it is. I've got a safe word. It's literally pineapple. If I'm being a flipping tool bag, because I can, you know, if I get into a role and then I'm emotional about it and passionate about it, I'm gonna flip and I just go probably a bit too far, right? Like I get it. So we said pineapple. What was your strategy for kind of growing up fighting confidence versus ego? Because I've been aware of it and I know it, but I know that it has been I couldn't control it in my early 20s. I became aware of it a little bit ago, and I'm very attuned to it now. But what was your strategy for navigating ego and confidence?
Well, there's a couple of things. So first, and I'm not doing this to blow smoke, mate, but I'll give you a compliment. So when we had this conference thing last year that you put on, I don't even want to call it a conference. I don't know what it was that we went to. It was just this amazing time. It was something you pulled together, but you largely 99% of the time sat in the background. So and allowed it to be. You allowed other people, and there was no ego there really. No,
I didn't speak at all. Yeah.
No, and so being aware of that and doing that, I think, shows a massive strength. Because when you need to step up, you can and you will, and there's times when you must. But there's also times to realise that you've got to allow oxygen in the room for others to do the same. I think the other thing you picked up, which I really love, is that you got to have people around you that can say, you can say pineapple to, or and for me, my wife Amanda's been amazing. To sort of pull out that you've really been a bit of a dick, mate. Seriously. I mean, I love you to bits, but that's the Bruce I don't like. That's the Bruce that just rubs people up the wrong way or whatever it is. And so I really appreciate that. But then having a couple of key mentors around you too. So I remember once I was at we used to do this thing called the Father's Breakfast when I was at the parenting place as CEO. And basically it was we got up to 1,000 guys in a room. We got 5 speakers, 7 minutes each. I used to get a sports person, an entertainer, and a business person, all smashing it. And then I would speak, and then one of my staff would speak. 7 minutes talking about what it is to be a dad. Amazing. And you could not go over 7 minutes. Anyway, one of my colleagues was speaking, and they said something, and I was sitting down the table, down the crew, and I went, that. I just did that. That was all I did. My mentor was sitting 500 men over the other side of the room, and he saw me do that. And he came up to me afterwards. He goes, "Man, this was awesome. You've really influenced me today. What an amazing thing, bro." When someone's in the public and it's one of your team, and you do this, you let yourself down and you let them down, and it freaking hurt. But what a great lesson to give someone, right? And it's finding those people around you a bit that kind of can call the dick card and say, "Mate, you've been a bit of a douche,"
Yeah.
And sometimes it really hurts, but and it has. But yeah, the other thing, look, I've failed a lot. I mean, when I first became CEO, God, I think back now, I must have been such an arrogant, bloody know-it-all, Yeah, and I'm so thankful for the people around me that just gave me the grace and the space to sort of, for me to figure it out. And I'm so super thankful to those people. And it's easier when you get older too, bro. Because you kind of get more. I mean, when you get in your 50s, you kind of or even 40s, you kind of, I don't know, you want to be competitive, but you're not as worried about what people think. And that doesn't make you more arrogant. That makes you more comfortable in your own skin. And so, it's only the last 5 or 6 years I've learned that vulnerability at the table is actually a good thing. Being open. And Brené Brown, when she talks about vulnerability, she's not saying that you have to sit at the table and cry every 5 minutes. Vulnerability is that you're prepared to stick and stay in the pain and live in that space. So if you're making a tough decision on somebody, or you're making a hard call, whatever it is, you sit in that pain. You don't try and jolly along and make everyone feel better. You just go, this feels like shit. We all feel like shit. Let's just work through it. So that's the stuff I've been doing the last 5 years or so. Yeah.
I think it becomes different as well, because you go to these different phases in life. You're physically taken out of that one little bubble and you start to see more. I think what happens, especially maybe early 20s and stuff too, is you're just in kind of one bubble, full drive in the bubble and just circling around itself. Just you're kind of like hyper looping itself in the same vibe and energy, opposed to, when you get a wife and fam and get a bit older, more perspective, then you pop out for a second, you look back and you're like, oh, who's that dude? The fuck, whoa. But I guess it can become all consuming as well. And maybe it is just an age thing too.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, the other one that keeps you on the straight and narrow is your kids.
Yep.
There's been many times when my kids have called me out and just said, that's not acceptable, Dad, or you can't do that, or you shouldn't say that, or
pineapple.
Pineapple, because it's really interesting, because you look at you look at the things that our generation, no, not you, but probably more my generation, have not struggled with, but done a really bad job of, we're still very, very binary in our approach, right? So around gender, identifying, around culture and race, around religion, around anything that should, we still struggle with it. And around marriage, roles in marriage and around all that stuff. My generation's still trying to figure our way or work our way through that mentally. My kids' generation, well, certainly my kids don't see that stuff, and then they start to, and they actually hold. We see this on the ship, but with the Spirit, they'll hold you to account. Like they're going, so what are you doing about the environment? And my generation going, oh well, I've got an electric car. Yeah, no. What are you doing about the environment? They'll hold. Why is there girls and boys toilets? Why is this not gender fluid? Why they'll hold you to account on this stuff, and I think it's fantastic. So it's your generation, because you're just you're sort of 15 or 10, 12 years behind me or whatever it is. What are 20 years behind me? How many? A long time behind. What are you, 35?
Yeah, 35. Yeah,
I could be your father, technically, but I'm really trying to open myself up and really listen to that and to learn. And it's amazing. Like I'm fighting the things that are sort of in me that I know are not right, and I need to change that. Your generation's closer, and so you're probably somewhere between me and the 15 and 16-year-olds that are coming through, and the generation that you're going to influence. So when we talk about Black Lives Matter and all these sorts of things are coming out, this is my generation cocking it up, in regards to our view of it, and we'll come out and say, well, all lives matter. Well, actually, no, they don't until we get the first thing right, which is Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? So it's learning those things. It's and that's been a big plus this year, I think, in a lot of ways. Not what's caused those things to come out, but the conversations are starting to, and they've been driven by the younger generation to go, actually, guys, enough's enough. We've got to start thinking differently.
The young bucks are always combative against the way things were and why. So it's challenging to ways of operating or ways of doing or being or technology. But this next wave is now. But why is it? It's more questioning, not, hey, stuff that's what you've built is shit. It's actually like, well, why isn't this done? Why? It's more challenging with purpose instead of challenging out of just pure authoritism.
Exactly. Yeah, I think and so I guess what I'd say to other 50-year-olds out there is kind of going, read some Brené Brown. Slow down a bit and just do what I'm doing, which is not easy. I went through a year last year, and you were part of that year with what we did, where I just went, all that stuff that was holding me back, all the stuff that was deep in me and hurting me and all that sort of stuff, I'm going to take it on. It's going to be a battle. I shared this with you. I'm going to take it on, man. I'm going to go get a counselor. I'm going to get a coach, and I'm going to face some of this shit that's been holding me back, and it was hard. It was real hard. And, there was times I was just turned into a blubbering mess, but I'm not ashamed to say it, man. I dealt with some of the things around my mental health and a whole bunch of things. And I went, okay, you want to fight, Mr. Bruce? You want to fight with all that crap that you're holding on to? Let's have it on. And we did. And would I do it again? She was hard work. But now, 18 months later, I'm in this space now where I feel like I'm starting to come out the other side and move into an area of influence that I'm really proud of.
What's decoding the baggage too, right?
Yeah, and it went way back, bro. Coming from an abusive family, alcoholic father, all that sort of stuff. I put it into a box and left it over there. So I decided to get the box out, open it up, dive in, and sort it out.
That's what I did that with is a psychologist, psychiatrist, one of the I don't know the right one, but a couple.
They're good, eh? Yeah.
4 years ago, and I went through. I got a mate, Richie Hardcore, and he was talking about some mental stuff. Yeah, and I was like, yo, who's like the gnarliest dude? Like I want to go see this dude, right? And so not that I had anything
crazy.
No, then he was like, yeah, man. So anyway, hooked me up with this guy, and I rolled up, and I still remember like he rolls out, sees me, comes in, and he goes, "You're not here for like a regular thing, huh?" And I'm like, "Oh no, man. I've got other shit bubbling and I want to try and figure myself out. And basically went, my goal with it was I wanted to decode and dissect how I operate and think.
Yeah,
So
great.
I knew that if I want to try and break myself, how I'd do it. If I was in opposition or someone else, like where's the ammo?
Yeah.
How could I, like, what's my code? And then as soon as I go, I was like, oh, okay, this is my blueprint. This is how I roll. This is what I do. And it was probably one of the coolest
bro, you
things.
got to be brave to do it, eh? You got to be brave to do it. It's not easy. And, I'm really thankful to my wife and my kids and others around me that said, get in there. A great coach is the best one. If you ever want the killer coach that's going to mess with your shit, as you would say, Robett, let me know, mate, because I'll hook you up. She was transformative. She transformed me in a lot of ways.
I know you're a busy man. You've got to bump off and boost to the next, but always appreciate our yarns, my friend. And congratulations on the new role. It must be
thank you so much.
Exciting to transform into a new space with a lot less of the mental stuff for impact for others, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and thank you as a younger guy for believing in me and encouraging me to take that risk. I really appreciate it. So,
appreciate it, brother. And I'll see you soon.
Okay, bless you, man. See you.
Thanks, bro. Talk soon. Bye. The bro, Bruce Pilbrow, CEO of a Spirit of Adventure Trust, doing amazing good stuff up in Auckland. Check out. I'm imagining I don't know where the website is, but you can probably happily Google it. Hopefully you've had a good morning. If you're in Auckland, if you did work in the CBD, I'm sure you're at home, probably just hanging and cruising, doing whatever you're doing. Enjoy the rest of the day, team. Be good, be great, and adios. I'll see you soon.